All right, we continue now with Tennessee Tech head coach Steve Smith. If you have a question for him in a minute, let me know down in the chat and I'll call on you. But coach, we'll start first. Just your general thoughts heading into this 2021 season.
Well, just kind of echoing a little bit of what Jim said, and probably everyone else before me. I know all of us are just, I don't know, relieved, excited, anxious to play. I know for me personally, even though technically last year was the first year it really, it really to me wasn't. I've said this before, maybe not quite this publicly, but I was really, really disappointed for all of college baseball last year that, and the whole country, obviously that we had to shut everything down. But to be perfectly candid, I think for us and for this program here, it was probably a blessing. It certainly gave me a chance to hit the reset button and take care of some things that really wouldn't have been able to get taken care of if we were playing. So, everybody's got to choose how they react to things, and it was an opportunity for us to sort of, as a program, hit the reset button. I thought, for me, the big issues were just identifying what the staff needed to look like, identifying what things we could address in the facility, and honestly, primarily the playing surface itself, and then just sort of reconstructing the roster. Those are the three things, and I think we've made a tremendous amount of progress. I know that the bulk of this call should be about the roster, and I think we did a lot, as I think a lot of people did. I mean, there's a glut of players now almost everywhere in college baseball, which, some of us have been in favor of 5 years of eligibility and doing away with redshirting. Football has pursued that hard in previous years. We as Division I baseball haven't, but I think what we're about to see is what that would look like if we got it, and the quality of our game and how much it would improve. When you're playing the game with a bunch of 22-year-olds and sometimes 23-year-olds, it's going to be a better game. So that's kind of a side note, but it looks like we're going to get a chance to sort of test that out this year, not just in the OVC, but all across the country.
Perfect. Thanks, Coach. We have some questions in the queue we'll go to in just a sec. But I wanted to ask you this first then. You just alluded to it. You had a first season, but you really didn't have a first season. So your team obviously grew a lot from when you took over to now. What do you think the biggest improvement on some of those things you mentioned that your team has made from your introductory press conference to February 12th?
Well, just through the 15 games that we played, the obvious deficiencies were the things you don't want to be deficient at in baseball. You do not want to be deficient in the middle of the field. And we literally had one catcher. We really did not have a middle infield. And we probably were decent in center field, but those were the places that we were just really shorthanded there. And I would say probably the biggest one would be behind the plate, just because we only had one guy. And so we've addressed that. We're much deeper behind the plate, and I think much more skilled there. So I think that's all good. We were able to get some transfers in that gave us some, to be able to step in and be ready pretty quickly. We don't have a lot of freshmen. The guys that we brought in were predominantly junior college transfers, in some case 4-year transfers. And I felt like, honestly, during the last spring when we were shut down, and we've continued to be shut down recruiting-wise in terms of going off and having guys come in, it almost felt like I was working, I'm sure the other guys feel this way too, as a major league GM. I've got my laptop in front of me and I'm looking at the transfer portal, i.e. the waiver wire, and I'm looking at Synergy, which gives me, really good video and good way to sort of get a really good evaluation in games. You're looking at stats. So you're basically recruiting guys who bring some kind of a track record in that you wouldn't otherwise get. And for the first time ever, I'm saying things like this in recruiting. And a lot of guys have always done this, but I've never done it. But I would say, look, you'll play left field and you'll hit third or fourth in the lineup. Or you're going to pitch on Saturday and you're going to get 14 starts. Or, and this was my favorite, you're going to hit in front of Jason Hinchman. And that feels like professional baseball. And this isn't professional baseball, but that's what it felt like. And so, we'll see. But and we weren't as successful in attracting those free agents as I would have liked to have been. But it was not for lack of trying, and it certainly wasn't for lack of payroll, because we had payroll available. I use that word facetiously, but it is what it is. And so, but the middle of the field, back to your question, behind the dish, middle of the field, defensively, I feel like we're much more capable. I think we were going to hit a little bit last year. I think the offense wasn't going to necessarily be the problem. I think it was going to be more on the mound and more defensively that would have really crippled us. And so those are the biggest things that we've been able to improve.
Let's go to Van Stokes. Van, go ahead with your question.
Coach, this is Van Stokes from the Governor Sports Network in Austin Peay. And again, belated welcome to you to this conference. It was a bit of a rude welcome last year in your first dozen or so ball games, but there, things work to a purpose, and you just addressed really how that did work to your purpose and gave you a chance to reset. So I'll shift my question from that to Hinchman. What makes him so good at the plate? What does he do at that dish to make him so effective?
Well, part of it is just he's gifted. He's got some pop. He's a powerful guy at the plate. You guys have seen him more than I have. So I'm going to give you what my take on him is. And I do think he's the kind of athlete, and I'll use that word. I don't think a lot of people, when they think of Hinch, would necessarily use the word athlete or athleticism, but he's a better athlete than you would think. He loves to run the bases. He's got a lot of instinct. His arm is not a plus, but it's not a negative. He's a good enough athlete that I've gotten him off of first base, which he was really good, but we got too many of those. And I've really put him in center field. That may not stay that way as some other guys come along, but right now he's an upgrade significantly for us in center field. But obviously the thing that he's clearly known for is his bat. And I think it's his, the power is just the God-given thing. But he's the most professional mindset of any player that was here. Back when we did get shut down from playing in last March, most everybody here, and I'm sure other places, they scattered. They were online classes, and so there wasn't a lot of guys around. That guy never left. I sat here at this desk and watched him walk by the door day after day, as he's headed to do his thing in the cages. And going from that, I can't tell you, most teams, if their best player is not the guy who's doing the cleaning in the locker room. And, we do a lot of work here, as everybody else does. The players have to do a lot of things, to maintain the facility. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in the locker room and seen Jason Hinchman with the vacuum cleaner, vacuuming the locker room. He doesn't talk a lot. He's definitely not a vocal leader. And most of the time, I don't, the lead by example thing, it usually doesn't work for me. We all got to lead by example, but nobody leads only by example. But if anybody could lead only by example, Jason Hinchman's the guy. He's the best player on your team. and he's got the vacuum cleaner cleaning up the locker room. And you really can't ask for any more than that as a coach.
He's got that vacuum cleaner-like approach too when he comes to the plate in order to clear those base paths.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I understand from previous years, the big knock on him was swing and miss, the strikeout numbers. And so it was clear to me last year, just in the few games and the times I was with him, he makes a concerted effort to cut his swing down with 2 strikes. This guy wants to play the game. He wants to move on. He's got dreams and aspirations. And so he's forward thinking. He's always looking to get better. You know, that may be not unusual at a lot of places, but I think it's unusual sometimes at this level.
Well, Coach, that's our 10 minutes. We appreciate your time this morning.
About that, 10 minutes.
It was good, pretty easy. We filled up the time easily. So thank you for your time. Best luck to your team and health, and also weather too this year.
Thanks, man. Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.